Good morning, Prep 4. Hope you are all well. This video is going to be the first in a series of videos for a story reading section within our Google Classroom. And it's where I'm going to read chapters of the book that we would be reading in class. And the book is Friend or Foe by Michael Morpurgo. Some of you will have read this already, some of you won't have done. If you can get your hands on a copy so you can follow me and read along as well, that would be great. But I'm just going to read the book a chapter at a time and share it onto the Google Classroom. By looking at the front cover, you will probably get a little bit of a giveaway as to when the book was set and what it might be about. So here we go. I hope you enjoy. Chapter 1. His mother woke him as usual that morning, shaking his shoulder and then kissing him gently as he rolled over. It was pitch black around him, but then he was used to that by now. For months they had slept down in the cellar on the bunks his father had made the last time he was home on leave. "Here's your apple, dear," his mother said. "Sit up and have your apple now." And she patted the pillow behind him as he pushed himself up onto his elbows. He felt the saucer in his hand. His early morning apple was the only thing that had not changed since the war started. Every morning, as far back as he could remember, his mother had woken him this way, with an apple peeled, cored and quartered, lying open on a white saucer. He felt his mother shifting off the bed and watched for the flare of the yellow light as she struck the match for the oil lamp. The cellar walls flickered and then settled in the new light, and the boy saw his mother was dressed to go out. She had her coat on and her hat with the brown feather at the back. It was only then that he remembered. His stomach turned over inside him, and tears choked at his throat. The morning he had thought would never come had come. Every night since he'd first heard about it, he prayed it might not happen to him. And the night before, he had prayed he would die in his sleep rather than wake up and have to go. "You were restless again last night, dear. Did you sleep?" He nodded, not trusting himself to speak. "Come on now, eat your apple and get dressed. Quick as you can, dear. It's 6 o'clock by the station," they said. "It's 1:45 now. I left you as long as I could." 15 minutes left. 15 minutes and he'd be gone. 30 minutes and she would be back in this house without him. She was bending over him, shaking his shoulder. "Please, dear, we must hurry. Eat it down quickly now. Miss Roberts said you'd be having a roll and jam on the train, but you must have something before you go." "Don't want it, Mum." He handed the saucer back to her. Only moments before, he had been savouring that first bite of his apple. They were always crisp, always juicy like nothing else. But now he felt sick just at the sight of it. "You must, David. You always have your apple. You know you do." He had upset her and ate it to make her happy, swallowing it like medicine, trying not to taste it. Each bite reminded him that this was the last apple. Once out of bed, he dressed to keep the cold out. His mother was packing his suitcase and he watched everything going in and wondered where he'd be when he took it all out again. They said only one case, so there's only room for one change of clothes. All the things you wanted, they're at the bottom. I'll send on the rest as soon as I know where you'll be. She smoothed down his coat collar and brushed through his hair with her fingers. "You'll do," she said, smiling softly. "Do I have to, Mum? Do I have to go?" Even as he asked, he knew it was useless. Everyone was going from school. Nobody was staying behind. He was ashamed of himself now. He'd promised himself he'd be brave when he said goodbye. He clung to his mother, pressing his face into her coat, fighting his tears. She crouched down in front of him, holding him by the shoulders. "You remember what I said, David, when I told you your father had been killed, do you?" David nodded. "I said you'd have to be the man of the house, remember?" He took the handkerchief she was offering. "You never saw your father crying, did you?" No, Mum. Men don't cry, see? Try to be a man, David, like your father was, eh? She chucked him under the chin and straightened the cap onto the front of his head. Come on now, we'll be late. It was still dark up in the street, and a fine drizzle sprayed their faces as they walked away from the house. David looked back over his shoulder as they came to the postbox at the corner and caught a last glimpse of his front steps. He felt his mother's hand on his elbow, and then they were round the corner. Ahead of them, there was a glow of fire in the sea. South of the river, his mother said. Battersea, I turn. Quick picture. Battersea, I should say, poor devils. At least you'll be away from all that, David, away from the bombs, away from the war. At least they won't get you as well. He was surprised by the grim tone in her voice. Where will you go, Mum? Wherever they send me, probably to the coast, Kent or somewhere like that, somewhere where there's anti-aircraft guns, and that's all I know. Don't worry, I'll write. Their footsteps sounded hollow in the empty street. They had to step off the pavement to pick their way round the edge of a pile of rubble that was still scattered halfway across the street. That was where the Perkins family had lived. They had been bombed, but only a week before. They were all killed. Special prayers were said at the school assembly for Brian and Gary Perkins, but no one ever mentioned them after that. They were dead, after all. In the gloom outside Highbury and Islington Underground Station, there was already a crowd of people. Miss Evers' voice rang above the hubbub and the crying. She was calling out names. His mother pulled at his hand, and they ran the last few yards. Tony Tucker! Tony Tucker! Miss Evers' voice rose to a shriek. Where's Tucky? Has anyone seen Tucky? He's coming, miss. I saw him. And what about David Carey? Is he here yet? Yes, miss, I'm here, miss. David spoke out, pleased at the strength of his voice. Here's Tucky, miss. He's just coming. Right then. Miss Evers folded her piece of paper. We're all here and it's time to go. Say goodbye as quick as ever you can. The train leaves Paddington at 8:30 and we have to be there at least an hour before. So hurry it up now and don't forget your gas masks.